Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast, the show for firearm enthusiasts who like to shoot, train, carry, and compete. Get ready for some shooting insight, firearm and accessory reviews, and of course, insight on concealed carry. And now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the From Concealment studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams.
Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast. This is Pete Mitchell.
And I'm Dan Sands.
And man, who knew after last week's Gilroy episode that we did, we would have just like mass shooting galore in the last few days. So it's, man, I tell you, it's like you see stuff like that. And of course, you know, I kind of said what I felt after the Gilroy shooting. You know, why does, like, I'm in communist California, of which we talked about the fact that they don't even issue concealed carry weapon permits in the county where the Gilroy shooting happened. And now, of course, the battle cry is, you know, let's take away all guns, semi-automatics are horrible, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And I just look at it and go, why is your insistence on turning me into a victim? Like, why is it when something bad happens, the knee-jerk reaction is, well, let's just make everyone more of a victim?
Yeah.
And it infuriates me. It frustrates me. It cements in my mind. Like, I was like, okay, I mean, I pretty much carry my firearm everywhere I go, but I'm like, I'm carrying it everywhere. Like, this is crazy now.
Yeah.
Like, it's getting absurd out there.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts because, as we were mentioning before the podcast, in fact, why don't you just say everything that you said before the podcast, what your degree is in, and how that affects this whole conversation from your standpoint?
Yeah, so my master's degree is in philosophical theology, and that doesn't make me super smart, but it means I want to know a justification for why somebody arrives at an opinion, and I'm happy to talk to people that have differing opinions. I realize that people can look at the same bits of evidence and come to different conclusions. I understand that. That's okay. I can disagree with somebody. I really hate, though, when someone not only rejects evidence or rejects information because of their emotion, but actually seems to get angry at people who want to speak rationally. And that's what I feel like I'm running into, is that people are having an emotional response and wanting to make wide sweeping legislations based on emotional responses, rather than calming down and saying, okay, this is not the time to make decisions. Let's sit down and figure out what needs to be done, what's right. Let's think rationally. But right now, even the rational people, like, they're hated. I don't know if you saw the thing. I'm not a big fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson, but he posted just a few stats about how people die and what's happening, and, you know, what causes most deaths, and just stated this, you know, the statistics, and said, hey, let's just try to calm down and remember that there's a whole lot of things going on, and we don't want to react and make a bunch of rules based on whatever. And I'm paraphrasing. Man, the backlash against him was crazy, and all he did was tweeted facts. Now, you could say was being insensitive, you could say all kinds of things, but the reality is factual information was seen as hateful. And that's the world we're in right now. We're in what's called a post-truth world, where people care more about emotion and actually value it higher than any bit of evidence or rational argumentation. And man, that's disturbing me at a deep level, if I'm being honest, you know? So that's kind of been the way it's played out.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I mean, it's, you know, and here's the thing that I kind of alluded to on our last podcast. People start saying, "Oh, well, we need mental health," and I agree. We got mental health issues worldwide in this country, no doubt.
Yeah,
you and I would argue our president's got some mental health issues that need to be checked. The guy is, anyway, that's a whole other subject for another day. In fact, I can't think of a president in my lifetime even that anyway, sorry, that's off the topic.
It's all right.
But but there is just evil too.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you see that image of the kid in Texas who has the earmuffs on,
Yeah.
and I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, that's someone who's shot enough to know it's loud.
Yeah.
I don't like his thought process was, I don't want to hurt my ears. I'm putting on I'm going to go kill people. I'm going to put on earmuffs. There's a point at which when someone is putting on earmuffs, if you come to me and go, well, it's a mental health issue, I got serious issues with that. That's an evil issue. There is an evilness there, a selfishness, a self-centeredness that is like unprecedented in our society.
Yeah, and how crazy about that one? I noticed that too. The dude's wearing ear protection as if he planned to come out of it alive.
Right.
And he did.
Well, he fully surrendered. He was like, okay, I did my deal. I'm surrendering.
Yeah.
I'm famous now.
That's one of the things that's crazy to me. I'm going to keep my tinfoil hat off. I'm going to do my best to keep it off for this episode, but I'm like, what's going on if you, like, you were planning to live, and you did. You were right. So, like, anyway, that stuff's crazy. But no, the reactions we're dealing with right now are bizarre. We have evil in the world, but then the mentality, and this is going to make me sound like a pastor again, but the mentality so
well, you
often...
are. So
I know, I can't get away from it. The mentality so often is we don't want to blame evil in others, because then we have to pay attention to the fact that that evil is in our hearts as well. And we don't want to go there, so it's easier to blame society in some ambiguous way, or blame guns, or blame law, or blame video games, or whatever. But the tendency is that because people idolize themselves, they don't want to address the evil that's in their heart. And so they blame, third-party things. And that concerns me deeply, because you're exactly right. This is an evil issue. And if it is an evil issue, then I need to keep my heart in check. That's why I need the Lord, right? But also, I have a responsibility to protect my family from evil. And that's part of why we have this podcast, part of why we carry firearms. We believe in using them. We train them. I was training my 8-year-old daughter yesterday.
I saw that.
Safety and shooting, and she's getting better, right? But this is what people seem to not understand. It's easier to demonize a weapon than to say, hey, there is evil, and so I need to protect against evil, and I need to make sure that I am avoiding evil in my own heart. And what a world.
Yeah, it is, man. It is just turning into a crazy world with, I don't know, man. Things are just, to me, I'm looking at it going, like, the rational side of me just goes, okay, if you're not carrying a firearm now and you're legally able to, you're crazy. Like, you're crazy. Because it's happening at, like, wasn't it Walmart and Home Depot or something like that? I mean, it was like just going to the store. I'm just going to run down to the store. And stuff like that is happening. You got to protect yourself. Like, here in California, this is, I don't know, maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years. I don't remember exactly when it was, but some gunman was being chased by cops. I think he just robbed someone. Runs into, I believe it was like a Sprouts grocery store. Mm-hmm. And, cops pull up and they start firing. And, of course, the cops end up killing a civilian because they were shooting way too far away. Like, you should not have taken that shot that far away with a pistol. I mean, you shouldn't have done it. Mm-hmm. But, not to condemn the cop, because while they shouldn't have done it, you got adrenaline pumping like crazy. I think the guy was shooting at the cops, hence the reason why the cops, shot at him and ended up killing at least one civilian I know. And now that cop, unfortunately, is going to live with that the rest of his life. And I'm sure that's not going to be, a pleasant thought, no matter what happens to his career. And I don't know. I didn't follow the situation. But my point in this story is literally going to the grocery store. Hey, I'm just going to run down to the grocery store, get a gallon of milk, whatever, right? And stuff can happen. And that's the reason why I carry pretty much everywhere I go. Like, I like to go riding my bike to get some exercise in the morning, and I carry a firearm with me. I usually carry my Glock 43. I got one of my favorite holsters, by the way, for a little lighter topic. One of my favorite holsters is the Brave Response holster. I find that it works really well because it's kind of like a belly band, but because I've got a belly, it's not a belly band, so it works really nice.
Party on.
And I'm able to, wear any kind of shorts I want. Sweat shorts doesn't matter. I don't need to worry about the gun pulling off my pants because it's technically in this other holster.
Nice.
But
I just looked it up. I'm liking the looks of this thing, man. This is cool.
It's one of the more expensive holsters. There are some things I would do differently if I were making it. I believe they came out with a version 2. I'm not ready yet to drop another $70 on it. But I must say, if I have to carry for a long time, like if I know this is a full day, I do a lot of public speaking. I'm going to be public speaking, so I'll be standing a lot, moving around on stage. Yeah. I will opt for the Brave Response holster because I know it's going to feel like I have nothing on at all. Like it's that easy to work. I can position it anywhere on me. So I mean, I'll definitely use it for that. But I use it like I said when I'm going for a bike ride, and I put everything in that thing, man. I put my Glock 43, my Glock 19 with the RMR on it. If I'm wearing my Glock 17, I'm wearing that holster. Like,
nice.
I need it to sit down lower than my Glock 19 because that handle sticks out so much. So I'm using that specific holster, and it's great. It's a wonderful holster. I love it. I have no problems with it. I've just, as you know from my other podcast, I've been on this whole health kick, losing weight, whatnot, getting rid of the belly so I can carry appendix. Right? That's my goal, to be able to carry appendix. And so I've had to keep cutting inches off of the Brave Response holster because I've actually lost a lot of inches off the waist. So I gotta keep whittling that thing down, and it's been good. So eventually I'll have to just end up buying another one. But
it's cool though.
But I mean, my point is like you just don't know. Like you go down to the grocery store. I always would have taken my firearm, but now it's like I'm still taking my firearm, but I'm also like trying to be conscious about everything going on around me. Who else is around me? What else is going on? Is there anything that needs to grab my attention? Is there anything out of the ordinary? Yeah. All that type of stuff, and that's where my head is at a lot more now when I go. In fact, the only thing that really frustrates me is when I go to the chiropractor because I'm like, do you go to a chiropractor, Dan?
I do.
Do you carry when you go to Do you carry when you go to the chiropractor?
Interestingly enough, my chiropractor is really pro-gun, so I could easily carry and he would be fine. He's got a little basket where you put everything in, and I trust him. So if I wanted to do that, I could, and he wouldn't freak out. But I haven't been in a while. I'm actually my back has been doing really well. I haven't been to the chiropractor in a while. But yeah, I could carry there. But yeah, if I didn't have a pro-gun chiropractor, I would probably I'd probably have to leave it in the car or whatever.
Well, see, and that's the thing that worries me because, I don't like my chiropractor. I don't know him well enough. Like he knows me from coming in there, right?
Yeah.
And there have been times when I'm like, look, I brought the Brave Response holster, and because it is like a belly band, like it's not Kydex. You can't just take your gun out and put it back in. It's you take the gun out, you're not putting it back in. Or you're not, because it's like a belly band. You take the gun out and you shoot, and that's the reason that it's there.
Yeah.
You're not going to just slip it back in. You got to basically disrobe and stick it back in and make sure that the trigger on the Glock doesn't get tagged by anything.
Yeah.
So there have been times when I'm wearing that and I'm like, well, you're going to find out I got a gun today because I'm not taking it off. I mean, I just can't. And so, I mean, he's had to adjust me, and because of some of the movements that he does, like he'll like have me lay on my side and he'll do his whole body weight on my back somehow to try and crack it or whatever. And I'm like, That's got to be kind of like a weird feeling for him. Hey, I'm pushing on a gun and I know it's a gun. So I try not to do that to the poor guy, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, one look at me and you'd assume I'm not a cop too, right? And so in California, who has guns? Cops and bad guys. Like those are the two groups. So you'd look at me and go, well, he's not a cop. He must be a bad guy. So, so it does bug me when I go into the chiropractor because like, during our hot months, which are basically, 10 to 11 months out of the year, I'm not going in there with a coat. Like I have this one coat that I can kind of slide my firearm into, and that way it's still with me. And then I'll take my coat off, leave it on the table. He's got a little private area. Leave it over there. Don't need to worry about it. But I definitely, it's the one place that I'm like, I don't know how to do this, and I don't want to take it out and like put it in a basket kind of thing because while I'm cool with him, like if someone's gonna freak out and start shooting up the place, it could happen with anybody, but I'm just not worried about it with him. Yeah. But I don't know everyone that's gonna come there, and what happens if someone comes running around the corner where I am? They see the firearm, they take. I mean, right? So it's
there's all kinds of things there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so I don't know. Maybe I got to just start carrying a bag. Who knows? And go back to the fanny pack days. Maybe that's what I got to do. A fanny pack. I don't know.
So I knew an ATF agent back in the day. We're not friends anymore. But
I almost spit out my coffee on that one.
He carried his Beretta and this is in the 90s. He carried his Beretta in a fanny pack that had. And it was actually kind of an effective holstering system because it was Velcroed, and so he could just pull from the side. I mean, it was a conceal carry fanny pack, and were it not for the just terrible fashion statement that makes, it was actually an effective way to carry. He could fast draw. He could carry plenty of ammo. Nobody suspected it because everybody was carrying fanny packs back then. But wow, fanny packs! I'm so glad those are gone. Yeah, man. But no, I like the looks of this Brave Response holster. That's cool. I like it.
It's a nice one. I think it's made by the same guys who do that USAA carry and all those guys, and they're actually because you've been in some of my marketing stuff. For those of you who don't know, I train on marketing and I do marketing consulting for companies. I've actually written about some of their ads on Facebook. They're just brilliant. Like whoever is there is a direct response marketer. Like they just are. They know what they're doing. They're really, really good. So it doesn't surprise me that they have a higher priced holster like this. They're probably making money on hand over fist because they can sell it. I mean, they know how to sell. There's no doubt about it.
Awesome.
But anyway, along these lines, man, I was like, man, everything going on. I got 2 training events this week that I'm going to. I've got
Nice.
One tomorrow night. That one, I believe it's our basic skills training. So we train a lot on reloading. We train a lot on a form of rapid fire in the sense that one of the habits, and it's amazing to me, I don't know if you've noticed this, but one of the things that absolutely amazes me is when we're doing either our competitions, or usually I see this in the trainings, not so much with the people who compete, but in the trainings, when they say, okay, you're going to have to take 3 shots per target, and maybe we got 3 targets in front of us. It is really hard for people to get into the habit of doing 3 shots. They're so used to seeing the double tap on TV and in movies that's what they do. And so they'll be bang, bang, bang.
Yep.
And the point that this particular instructor always makes is he goes, look, the only time people die from 1 shot is on movies and in TV. You have to stop the threat. And it takes typically more than 1 shot.
Yeah.
And in some of their CCW training, like here in California, we got to go through 16 hours of class, and they'll show videos and movies of real life situations. And there's this one that's used all the time here. This really big guy gets shot 9 times and keeps coming. And finally, after the 9th time, he's like, okay, maybe I'm going to sit down. I don't feel so good. I mean, and so a lot of times when we do this rapid fire training, it'll be like, all right, look, you got to do 4 to the body and 1 to the head, or 4 to the body, 2 to the head, or, because you got to train yourself to not just stop at 2. Like, you keep going until the threat is stopped. Not dead, but stopped. They're no longer a threat. And so I love all that training. I've just kind of personally made the mental decision that on my trainings, I'm going to be using my carry firearms, which is pretty much all I do use in the trainings, because that's really what I want to train for, is for the carry. And then the competitions, I love my Glock 34, man. We talked about that a couple of times. And it's just too much fun to wait, that one I love using in competitions. But so anyway, I got training Wednesday, and then a rifle competition on Thursday. And so those will be fun, man.
Man, I've got to there's really should be more places around here. There's not enough places for us to do any kind of tactical training here. There's a place down the road from me that hosts trainings, but it's always the high level guy coming in, and his class is already full by the time you even hear about it.
Sure.
And so, but I'm trying to get in because I'm out. Yesterday I'm bench shooting, and I'm like, man, I'm okay when this thing's laying on a bench.
Right.
But man,
exactly.
When do I get the chance to really practice my my long gun? I can practice some quick stuff with my handgun and all that kind of stuff in the field out back, but I only have backdrop on one direction, and so for me to like practice movement shooting, practice paying attention to where the threat is and all that, like, man, yeah, I want to see some more 3-gun, 2-gun, and defense training up here. There's not enough. We need it. So I'm slightly jealous. The idea that I would have to go to California to get the type of training makes me feel really bad. That can't be.
Well, based on our new laws,
find freedom.
Based on our new laws, you couldn't even bring your ammo with you into California. So,
oh my gosh,
it's like you literally can't bring more than 50 rounds into California, which is why California, we don't have the big draw for competitions, because no one can bring their ammo here. Like,
man,
California will just confiscate it. And for me, let's say I take my personal carry firearm. In fact, I'm not even sure if you can bring 50 rounds now that I think about it. I think only if you live in California can you bring 50, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Don't quote me, guys. The laws here are so jacked up, you can't even recognize them. But if I were to come back across the border, which I do when I go to Vegas or Phoenix, my carry firearm, they could technically confiscate the ammo in my firearm. Like, that's how literally absurd our laws are. And so what I always remind myself as I get up close to the border patrol or the border check is they have no legal right to search my vehicle. I do not consent to a search. If they ask me to pull over into secondary search, my answer is no. I don't consent. You don't have the legal right to hold me or pull me over. So we're going to stay right here until you tell me I'm free to go, because you don't have the legal right and I'm not giving it to you.
And then you're asking them, like, am I being detained or am I free to go? Because it's one or the other. And if they're trying to get you to stay, they're not legally able to do that unless they are detaining you, and then they have to have just cause.
Right.
And unfortunately,
and not letting you search my car is not just cause.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I got a dash cam. I got the Al cam in my car, and it records everything that's going out in front of my car and inside my car. And I actually do that because I carry. If you've seen some of those stories of road rage, like I don't know, I think it was NRA, some maybe it was USAA carry. Somebody was like telling the story. This guy, it was his actual story. He was like, and I'm following behind this guy, and all of a sudden, I could tell he was road raging. I had no idea why, and so I just keep driving to work. Next thing I know, all these cops come over and they pull me over, and the cops are like, surrounded my car. They're like, "Do you have a gun in the car?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I got this little, whatever. It's his personal defense gun. It was in a bag, like in the back of his car." And he got arrested because the other guy, not knowing he had a gun, claimed he had a gun and was waving it around at him. And so, of course, the cops are going to respond to that. And the guy goes, "Oh, it's a black gun." Well, almost every gun is black,
Yeah.
right? So really hard decision there. And so he was guilty until proven innocent. It was only because he had that insurance that he was able to have a lawyer that fought it. And they're like, no, there's no proof that he did anything. Just one guy was making a claim. He's got no history, no nothing.
Yeah.
And because of that, I was like, that's it, man. I'm getting a camera in my car because I carry.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good idea.
I want everything recorded.
So the poor man's version of that, by the way, is the Shortcuts app on iPhone. You familiar with this?
No, I'm not. Please share it because
So
I want to know.
So what you're doing is the better option, no matter how you cut it. But iPhone, I want to say, I mean, it's one of the recent iOS updates released a Shortcuts app that essentially allows you to run coding scripts through the app that you can generate rules for. And so I can't say my code right now, but you can essentially say you can set it up to where, hey, if I say this, you say, hey Siri, ... whatever
No
it is
kidding.
you're going to say. Siri's listening to me as I say that. And so is the NSA. But you can say this, and what it'll do is it'll set up whatever set of rules you've created. And so you can set it up to make your iPhone go dark, where you lower the brightness and turn the camera on, and then text whatever video is filmed to any certain number of people. So let's say you, to use the kind of somewhat cliche but unfortunately real issue, let's say that you're a black guy that got pulled over by the cops and you just want this on record. So you can say, whatever your code to Siri, it'll immediately start recording, but it'll turn the screen brightness down so it can't, they don't see that your phone is on. And it's getting the audio, it's getting the video if you angle it right, and then it texts it out after a certain amount of time. Really cool. And so you can get that scriptable app. I mean, it's free. And then there are free rules that are preset that you can actually download.
Oh, you're going to so have to hook me up with the name of all that because...
Oh, man, yeah. There's an article I can
want
pull. It's so great. And then it's funny. I've tested it a couple of times, and then it texts my wife that I got pulled over. And so she's like, "You got pulled over?" And I'm like, "No, that was just the test," because it texts you what this is the scenario.
Right.
A really, really handy tool. And if you've got an iPhone, I think it works on any of the iPhone X and beyond. It might work on any iPhone that has Siri capabilities, so it might even be retroactively valuable. Great tool. And so I'm thinking of that on a lot of things, man. That's, in relation to our earlier discussion. I mean, a lot of people know I've got plenty of friends who are cops. I want to be as respectful as possible to them, but in our most recent discussion about shootings, one of my cop friends has made some pretty anti-gun comments that, saying we need to ban semi-automatic weapons. And so I'm like, whoa, we're in a new realm, because I've shot with this dude. And this dude knows the guns I have, and I'm like, are you going to be a narc, right? That's what's come onto my mind. I'm like, are you going to advocate for red flag rules, and are you going to be the guy who comes to the door? Because then I got hard decisions to make. And so I love this dude, and so I don't want to have a big fight with him. And so he posts this thing about there's too many mass shootings, and so... I forget his exact words. Too many mass shootings. We've got to ban guns. And I just was like, hey, man, I'm not looking to start a fight with you at all. Love, respect you. But if you just replace too many mass shootings with too many cop shootings, you realize that logically then you'd have to ban cops also, and knowing that he's a police officer. And so he kind of backed down a little bit after that. But I tell you what, I have been blessed to not be in a lot of trouble with police officers. But it's a little bit of a scary thing when someone who has the capability all of a sudden says, I don't want you to have this freedom anymore, but I want to be able to have it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And that's where I'm like, you know what? I want to be able to record if they show up and harass me about my guns. And I want to make sure that I'm able to defend myself and that I know my constitutional rights and want to be respectful of cops. This is not an anti-cop comment. It's more of the playing field is supposed to be level. We're supposed to be able to have access to these things. We're supposed to be able to easily say, hey, whoa, you can have your body cam and I'm going to have mine in the form of my iPhone or dash cam, whatever it is. And let's just make sure everything's above board.
Yeah,
but,
well,
man.
It's funny, too, because... everything that you just hit on, the one thought that always goes through my head that you and I have as I got to be careful how I say this so it comes out right. You and I do not face some of the turmoil that our brothers with darker skin have.
Yeah.
I was talking with actually with a church planner this last Sunday, or not this last Sunday, but a couple Sundays ago, right after church, and this is in California. He's telling me, he goes, first of all, one of the things that this guy's organization does is when people come out of prison, they help them get jobs and start their own businesses. So of course, you know me and my passions that like,
Yeah.
I was like, dude, I'm in. What do you need help with, right? How can I help? But he was going through all these stories of all these black guys who've been serving jail time, who were later found out to be innocent. And a couple of the stories he gave were guys who were given life imprisonment as teenagers. Yeah. And, now they come out of jail at 40 because, guess we got that wrong. And, they got no skills. Their whole formative years from late teens through their 20s, they spent in jail. And he goes, because I made the comment, I go, well, it is a little bit better here than it is in the South, meaning California, than it is in some of the South. And while it is better in some ways, in other ways it's not, because he goes, it was funny, I was talking when I was living here, and we got a little city called Cypress. He goes, when I was living here, I was talking with one of the youth in my church. He was a youth pastor at the time, and from the time the guy was 16 till 19, he was pulled over 9 times. Yeah. And he goes, I asked him, how many tickets did you get? He goes, well, I never got a ticket. I was never pulled over for doing anything illegal. Yeah. And like, he could not fathom that this guy who I was talking to, this pastor who's white, had only been pulled over 4 times in his entire life. And he goes, and every time I got pulled over, I knew what I was doing. Like, I knew I was speeding. I knew I made a right turn or whatever, right? He goes, it was justifiable. So my point is, in saying that, is it, without a doubt, it is different for people with dark skin. There's no doubt. Yeah. Like, I know everyone's like, oh, there's no racism. Dude, there's racism.
There's all kinds of racism. Yeah.
There's racism. Now, does that mean you're racist? No, and I think that's what most people say when they're like, there's no racism. They're thinking, I'm not racist. I get that. You're probably not racist. And I'm sure people who pulled over those other guys didn't see themselves as racist. But when you're pulling someone over for driving while being black, there's a problem there.
Yeah. Like, I have heard cops joke about doing that, by the way.
I've
heard cops joke about DWB. This is interesting, because on your point, I have heard a lot of the classic white guy response of, well, they shouldn't be breaking the law. I mean, that gets thrown out. And what they don't realize is, like, most of the time, they're not breaking the law.
Right.
And one of the things that was helpful, we have a church planter here in Northeast Ohio who is a godly man, dear friend of mine. He's about my age, African-American, grew up in Cleveland. And he moved to a slightly more rural part of Ohio to plant a church. And I remember him saying something, and like off the cuff, like not making a big deal, that in the last year he'd been pulled over, something like 14 or 15 times. And I'm thinking, like, whoa, like, I don't even think I've been pulled over that many times. I'm definitely not in my lifetime, right? Yeah. But for him, what was really shocking to me is that wasn't even a big deal to him. Like, he's like, it's part of the game, man. I get pulled over, and not for doing anything. And I remember just, trying to explain to somebody, like, here, you see, Calvin is a good guy. You have respect for him, whatever. He's telling you, like, this is not a guy who's breaking a bunch of laws, like, and he's getting pulled over all the time. Clearly, guys, this is not about breaking the law. It's about being harassed by cops. And then the next thing I jump to is, if they can harass him because of how he looks, they can harass you later on because of what you believe, where you attend, what kind of guns you have. And so I'm like, his freedom right now matters, because it matters anyway, but it's certainly going to affect my freedom later. We're in crazy times, man.
Man, I tell you, that's insane to me. Like
Yeah.
it genuinely is, because I look at myself, I look at everyone I know, and it's like, this stuff doesn't happen. Like, the thought that goes on in my head is, this stuff doesn't happen here, but I know on some level it does. And then when I hear these stories, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you pull people over for no reason?
Yeah.
Like, that's illegal, right? We don't live in a police state, and yet they can get away with it. And there's something seriously just jacked up about that.
Well, and then you'll watch some of these videos where a smart, constitutionally knowledgeable white guy will be in a discussion with a cop who's pulled him over, and he said, "Hey, whoa, wait a minute! You're not allowed to do this. You can't search my car." And he just essentially comes back and shares his rights, and he has a pretty strong disagreement with the police officer. But he's like, "No, you're not allowed to do this because it is not within your rights to search my vehicle right now." All this kind of stuff. And I remember my African American buddies talking about that, and they're like, I could never talk. I would die. I would be killed if I talked to a cop that way. And the way I look at it is, I'm like, I'm going to be respectful to a cop, but I might be like, hey, sir, officer, you are out of the bonds of your jurisdiction if you're going to try to search this or do this. And I can have that conversation. That's the other thing, is I'm not usually risking my life to have that conversation. Whereas my dude Calvin, or my buddy would call him Tank, they might be risking their life to just recite a constitutional law about their freedom. Crazy times. So, yeah, that's where I'm like, know what's allowed, know what your constitutional rights are, and then watch out for the rights of everybody else, because they might not even have the voice we have on it. I had one more comment, but I don't want to jump around too much. But I had one more comment that I thought was worthwhile related to the shootings this week.
Yeah, please.
So this is going to be me bringing in the conspiracy take just a little bit, but just slightly, partially because it makes it fun, and partially because it's interesting. I follow a lot of pro-freedom meme pages, and ever since the whole Epstein thing has come out, man,
pro-freedom
all of them,
meme pages. You try to find every liberty meme page there is and friend it or like it, whatever you call it.
It's a personal goal I have to like every liberty meme.
I'm convinced on some level that you run one of them and just aren't being public about it. That's my own personal belief.
I don't have the time, and I have to admit, I am a consumer of the beauty that are freedom memes. I'm not contributing to the society like I should. I'm a leech on it, and I love it. But I got to tell you, man, for the last, ever since the whole Epstein thing, those meme pages have been churning out. They're like, oh, so a guy who has dirt on every major person in power is in jail right now. They're like, there's going to be a mass shooting. Look for multiple mass shootings. And dude, for the last 3 weeks, all of them have been like, it's coming. They're going to be doing it. And man, then it happens. We're like, we get 1, 2, 3 smacked right on top, 4, I think, right on top of each other. And I'm like, and then they all reposted their old posts. They're like, see, told you this was going to happen. It's crazy. And then then the next thing they do is say, here's all the things we were talking about before the shootings. The Epstein situation, the Democratic debates, Kamala Harris's records being deleted by a district attorney, the court ruling that Julia Assange legally published Hillary Rodham Clinton's emails and that it didn't have anything to do with Russia. All that stuff was in the news, and whoop, now it's not
I know.
anymore.
I saw that in a meme. What happened with Julian Assange?
Julian Assange. So the debate was not whether or not he had released the emails. It was clear that he had released them. It was whether or not there was some kind of Russian interference paying him to do it or otherwise. And regardless of what all was happening, what's come out is that the judge has ruled, or the court ruling has been, that he, as a journalist, was legally releasing information, and that I don't know that they've proven that there was no Russia connection, but that it hadn't, he was within his legal rights, and it seems to be that Russia.
So is he still in jail right now, or was he released?
That's the thing. It's not in the news. I think he's still in jail.
Because are they still going after him for the rape, the statutory rape, or was that another country that was going after him for statutory rape?
So that was another country, and I think it was dropped, but then there was some talk of it being reinstated or come about in another way. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where he's at. And I don't have. Yeah,
we should have renamed this the Conspiracy Podcast.
I know you got to watch out.
I'm fairly certain our sponsors are gonna listen to this episode and be like, you know what, guys?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you might want to redact some of my comments for the sake of sponsors. Sorry, Pete.
We don't want you to say, even to insinuate that maybe we shouldn't worship cops, because pretty much and I get it, the gun culture is so pro cop, and I mean, not the gun culture, but the gun memes and all these pages that show up in my Facebook feed, they're always back the badge, and Blue Lives Matter and all that type of stuff, and they do. I 100% agree. Blue Lives Matter. I agree. You got to support police, but I also believe that you can't just worship them because they got a badge. They are broken people, just like the rest of us, and some of them, just like the rest of us, are evil. It just across the board, you're going to run into this stuff. That's just life, right? And so the whole idea that we can just bow down and even the same thing with the military. Look, man, I love what our military does, but I'm sorry, there are evil people in the military as well. And it's just the way it is. I mean, that's a part of life. And we can't just, bold-faced, across the board, always support, cops because they're a cop. We got to support truth. What's truth? And when bad people do bad things, we need to stand up for the victim. And whether that's because it's, a cop that perpetrated it, a civilian that perpetrated it, we got to stand for truth. That's got to be what our focal point is as a nation if we want to get through all this. I don't know. That's my own personal rant. And so with that, I'm just going to go ahead and finish this off here. Guys, this particular episode was brought to you by Fast OC. If you want to go to great training courses or even handgun challenges, I highly recommend it. Fast OC in Orange County, California. You can check them out at fastoc.com. I will probably be there for one of the challenges. Just look for Pete Mitchell Maverick, and you will see me there doing what I do. And we will look forward to talking with you all on our next podcast. It looks like we just lost Dan Sams. That's why he's not chiming in. I think it's the NSA. I think they shut off Dan. He's got too many conspiracy theories. But anyway, guys, we will talk to you next week. Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to the From Concealment Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams. Be sure to tune in next week for more gun talk. Also, check out the From Concealment website for more shooting-related goodness at FromConcealment.com.